Chairman Smith, Ranking Member Neal, and members of the committee, thank you for taking the time today for this hearing. Chairman Smith, I appreciate your opening statement and the details of some of the effects that prior trade policy has had in your district. And Mr. Neal, I appreciate the work we've done in the past and your willingness to continue working with us. Last Wednesday, President Trump declared a national emergency in response to the large and persistent trade deficit that has built up in recent years. This deficit is driven in part by non-reciprocal tariffs, trading barriers, and other economic policies pursued by our foreign trading partners. President Trump imposed tariffs to address this emergency. These measures are aimed squarely at achieving reciprocity and reducing our massive trade deficit. This national emergency declaration and tariff action is the most significant change in U.S. trade policy since we allowed China, unfortunately, to join the World Trade Organization. The American working class, in particular, has suffered concentrated losses from the so-called China shock and other adverse effects of past trade policy and the conditions that give rise to our massive trade deficit. The United States has lost 5 million manufacturing jobs and 90,000 factories since 1994. President Biden left us with a $1.2 trillion trade deficit in goods, the largest of any country in the history of the world. The United States' share of world manufacturing output declined from 28% in 2001 to 17% last year. In the fourth quarter of 2024, U.S. manufacturing as a share of gross domestic product was the lowest it had been in 20 years. During COVID, we were unable to procure semiconductors to build our cars or materials for pharmaceuticals and personal protective equipment. During World War II, we built nearly 9,000 ships. Last year, the United States built only 3 ocean-going vessels. Our agricultural trade balance, which historically resulted in trade surpluses for our farmers, was in deficit the last 2 years of the Biden administration and likely will take some time to recover. These are all serious indicators of an economic and national security emergency. One important driver of these negative trends has been unfair, unbalanced, and non-reciprocal trade. This includes the effect of higher tariffs imposed by other countries on the United States, the effect of non-tariff measures that promote other countries' exports and obstruct U.S. exports, and other foreign economic policies favoring overproduction and degrading America's manufacturing capacity. This lack of reciprocity is an important driver of our global trade deficit and with particular countries. For example, the European Union can sell us all the shellfish they want, but the EU bans shellfish from 48 states. The result is a huge trade deficit in shellfish with the EU. We charge only a 2.5% tariff on ethanol, but Brazil charges us an 18% tariff. The result is we have a huge trade deficit in ethanol with Brazil. Our average tariff on agricultural goods is 5%, but India's average tariff is 39%. You get the picture. Our trade deficit, driven by these non-reciprocal conditions, is a manifestation of the loss of the nation's ability to make, to grow, and to build. And it's dangerous. And the president recognizes the urgency of the moment. On the very first day of his second term, President Trump issued a comprehensive memorandum setting out his trade policy direction. And over the past 10 weeks, he has executed on nearly all of these priorities. He has tightened tariffs on steel and aluminum, imposed new measures on auto and auto parts not made in the United States by American workers. On April 2nd, he declared his national emergency and imposed the reciprocal tariffs. The president's strategy is already bearing fruit. Over the past few weeks, a planned layoff for an auto production shift in Tennessee has been suspended, and that shift continues to operate. Another automaker is hiring additional employees and expanding overtime to increase auto production in the United States. Companies have announced $4 trillion in new investment in the United States. Nearly 50 countries have approached me to discuss the president's new trade policy and explore how to achieve reciprocity. Several of these countries, such as Argentina, Vietnam, and Israel, have suggested they will reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers. These obviously are welcome moves. Our large and persistent trade deficit has been over 30 years in the making, and it will not be resolved overnight, but all of this is certainly in the right direction. We must move away from an economy based solely on the financial sector and government spending, and we must become an economy based on producing real goods and services by American workers in our communities here. This adjustment may be challenging at times. This is a moment of drastic and overdue change, but I'm confident that the American people will rise to the occasion as they've done before. I trust them. I trust that they can do this. I appreciate this committee's interest in President Trump's trade agenda, though we may not agree on everything and may have some severe disagreements at times. It's my hope that our shared interest in doing what's right for the country will allow us to collaborate in the coming weeks and months. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to our conversation.
Mr. Trade Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago. It's something
Sitting here,
under discussion.
Sitting here, under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions with
What are the
President
details
and
of the
Congress.
pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well, the details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the details? How long is the pause? How many days? How many weeks?
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've been in
So the
this
trade
hearing.
representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade.
Yes, I have.
And
I've just
yet
been in the hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet? WTF? Who's in charge?
The president of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Well, as I mentioned,
It looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you and paused the tariffs, the taxes on the American people. There's no strategy. You just found out 3 seconds ago sitting here. We saw you.
we've been discussing a
If
variety
you
of these
came
actions
here
for-
knowing that you were going to be turned off, that these tariffs were going to be turned off, why didn't you include that in your opening statement? Why didn't you reference that as part of your testimony?
Well, I don't disclose my conversations with the president, sir.
These were specific questions we asked you all along. What's the strategy? These are real consequences for the American people and small businesses. I had a group of small businesses in my office earlier today talking about the impacts of these tariffs on aluminum and steel. This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop. What does this even mean for your negotiating strategy? How are you in charge of negotiation if the president is tweeting about this from wherever the hell he is?
The president was elected, and he runs the trade policy, and I advise him and execute his
Who
trade
executes
policy.
the trade policy?
I execute the trade
Did you
policy
know
with the president.
that this was happening?
We have been discussing all kinds of
And there's another
options.
member of the cabinet, Bessent, who just canceled coming to the Hill to avoid talking about the market because it's in turmoil. This in just days because there was no strategy, there was no plan. The president chose to take actions that he didn't even have the authority to take. He's put our economy in disarray and near collapse. We have small businesses and Americans who are concerned about their well-being, people's retirement, people's 529 accounts went down because of this administration. We have people that are planning to send their kids to college this fall. People who are retiring whose benefits have declined. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
And
That's offshored all of our factories.
And what has that done?
Offshored all of
How
our
have you
jobs.
done? How have you achieved any of that? But to enact enormous harm on the American people, which was our concern from the very beginning. Tariffs are a tool. It can be used in the appropriate way to protect U.S. jobs and small businesses. But that's not what this does. So if it's not market manipulation, what is it? Who's benefiting? What billionaire just got richer? And all the while, there are not even any Republicans left in this hearing. They all left because they don't even want to defend this. But meanwhile, the Speaker is rushing to the floor to pass a budget reconciliation to screw America by passing the biggest tax cut in history. on the backs of the American people? WTF? Who's in charge? Because it sure doesn't look like it's the trade representative. You just got the rug pulled out from under you. I wish I could feel some empathy, but the empathy I have is for the American people whose very well-being and livelihoods are being affected. This is not a game. This is real life. I yield back.
Let the record reflect that there's more Republicans in this chamber than there are Democrats currently in this committee room. There's 6 of us, there's 5 of you. So let's make sure we get the facts right. I appreciate the president did not blink on China, as was said earlier, and it needs to be corrected in the record. In fact, he increased China by 125%.
Would you yield, Mr. Chairman?
I do not.
Yield? Can we have a colloquy?
No.
We don't want to talk about the trade policy here in the Trade Committee. This is our jurisdiction.
Your time has expired, and I'm more than happy to talk to you.
I asked if you would yield.
And I said no.
Because you don't want to defend the policy or the strategy. Kick me out. What you gonna do? Kick me out of
Mr. Yocum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Greer, it's good to see you today.
As I look at the clock, you have sat in the hot seat for 4 hours. And the hot seat has gotten hot. I know it's gotten hot. It's gotten hot because you and this president, President Trump, have chosen to not ignore a problem anymore. It would be so easy just to ignore it. It would be so easy to ignore our collapsing manufacturing base. It would be so easy to just ignore that we're subsidizing the rest of the globe right now, but it's not how you roll. It's not how this president rolls. We're determined to make things better. The problem is, as you know this already, since 1994, we've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs, 90,000, I'm looking at a camera somewhere. I want the American people to know what's at stake. 90,000 manufacturing plants have closed. You have said enough. You have said enough. This President Trump said, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to leave it better than I found it. And for our kids and grandkids, no more. Ambassador Greer, can you tell the American people what's going to happen if you just ignored it? If we just ignored it, how long? Is it unsustainable? If we just ignored the problem, what happens to our economy?
Now, thank you for your comments. I agree completely with you. The situation is, for the past 30 years or so, we have had a trade policy dictated by Wall Street, and that's what I have people screaming at me today, the Wall Street talking points, repeating everything. They're trying to tell me what Goldman Sachs thinks. They're telling me all these different kinds of things. We're not talking about the next quarterly earnings for the investors on Wall Street, right? When the Wall Street Journal says, oh, well, this is going to be bad for Wall Street, I'm kind of focused on Main Street. I'm focused on getting these jobs back. We're sensitive to volatility in the market. We're sensitive to this. The problem is there's not a silver bullet where we can magically, have everything, bright and shiny again immediately. But we have to take strong measures. I would love to have Congress also take strong measures to help with reshoring and to support during this transition, where we adjust from an economy that's fueled by government spending and over-financialization to one where we're making real goods and services. Because if we don't do it, Congressman, if we don't do it, then we will be dependent completely on others, including our foreign adversaries, for the things we need the most.
Amen. Like drugs and manufacturing, 50% of which comes from our adversary China, which is a shame. It's working. It is working, and I want the American people to know there are dozens of companies that said, hey, we're going to come back. We're going to invest in America. Apple, OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, Johnson & Johnson, thousands of jobs, billions and billions of money. So it is working. And I do know, as a tweet right now, we've got over 70 countries that said, America, we want to work with you. We're going to eliminate tariffs. So it is working. And my phone just went off that the president just recently said we're going to call timeout on a 60-day pause on every nation except China. That's breaking news, Mr. Ambassador. So which is really good.
You helped negotiate the USMCA. Did you think the USMCA was a good deal for America?
I think it was. There was a lot more we could have done and should have done.
So why did the president come out after this year and say it was one of the worst deals we ever negotiated in the history of the country?
I think it's frustrating that here we are 5 years later and steel imports from Mexico shot up, car imports from Mexico shot up.
Well, you think it was a good deal, but he thinks it was a terrible deal. I mean, I feel like you're in a very bad position here. This whole idea that this president made this switcheroo on you while you were in the middle of testifying here today. I actually feel bad for you.
No,
but I really feel bad for the American people that are seeing these things happen. There's no plan. I mean, that's my big concern. I know there's goals. I want to see manufacturing brought back to America, or at least I want to see jobs that pay more money so we can rebuild our middle class in America. I'm for that. I'm for holding China accountable and holding our adversaries accountable. I'm for tariffs in select specific places. But right now, all we know is prices are going up, we're pissing off our allies, and the stock market went down dramatically. It's gone up dramatically today. The market manipulation question by Mr. Horsford is a very real concern that we're going to have to dig into a little bit. Who's benefiting from these wild fluctuations down, wild fluctuation up? We're still way down. We need a plan to accomplish the objectives that I know that you genuinely believe in, which is to try and recreate the middle class here in the United States of America, that on my side of the aisle, we all believe in that. We have to recreate the middle class in America. Do you think we should increase the minimum wage in America?
I think we need to create jobs that naturally have high wages.
The minimum wage in 20 states is $7.25 an hour. Do you think we should increase the minimum wage?
I mean, I think the states should be managing that kind of thing. I think we need better manufacturing jobs that are
20 states,
$30, $40, $50
20 states
an hour.
rely on the federal minimum wage. It's still $7.25 an hour. So you don't think we should increase it at the federal level?
Well, you'll have to talk to the Secretary of Labor on that. That's
Do you think
way
we should
outside
have
my
the
wheelhouse.
PRO Act to promote unions in America? Because that will help to recreate the middle class.
And I'd refer you to Secretary Chavez DeRemer. She's much better placed.
Do you like the CHIPS Act that to reshore the manufacturing of semiconductors here in the United States of America, a national industrial policy where we invest in creating factories with high-skilled, high-wage jobs in America? Do you support the CHIPS Act?
So notionally, I agree that we should have industrial policy to help with chips and other things, right? You know, whether the CHIPS Act was the perfect way to do it, I don't know. But
So my big concern is that, you know, we want to do these things. You and I share the same goals, but there's no plan right now. As we saw, there's been devastation from this unilateral action by the president where he treats our allies and our strategic adversaries the same, with the exception of China. We know that China's, and I'm all for that. I actually have a bill that I've sponsored to get rid of most favored trade nation for China. So, but why are we treating our allies? Why are we treating Japan and Korea and Australia, who have been our bulwarks against China in the Indo-Pacific? And Vietnam, even though they don't share our philosophy, they're sick of China as well. And we were building a relationship with them to help us be a bulwark against China. Why are we treating our allies in the Indo-Pacific, who are our main allies against China, the same as we're treating our adversaries?
We aren't treating them the same. They have substantially lower tariffs than
I know,
China.
but we just
Substantially.
we really
They're
kind of
completely different.
bombarded them. I mean, it's the same as USMCA. We negotiated a bipartisan trade agreement that everybody agreed upon, that the president praised as being the best deal ever, and now he pulls the rug, like he pulled the rug out from under you today. He pulled the rug out from under Canada and Mexico. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's no plan. Do you think that there's a plan, and can you share the plan with us?
Certainly. Listen, I'm very confident in the president's policy. Goods that meet USMCA rules come in duty-free. So when the president comes out and he says, we're going to have a tariff to make sure we're treated the same, that we can get rid of these deficits. We have a baseline 10% to make sure that we don't have Swiss cheese in this program. And then we have higher tariffs on those who are the worst offenders. That's why you end up in
the president put in place
the
president put in place these high tariffs. But today, he just yanked them out. Is that part of the plan? Was that always part of the plan?
Well, they're paused. The reality is, a lot of these countries have come to us and they said, we understand American leadership, we understand what you're trying to do, we want to have reciprocal trade with you. China has taken a different choice, and so they're on a different path. Our Western Hemisphere countries, they all have the lowest rate. They have a 10% rate, right? The UK, Australia, they have a 10% rate. These are all the lowest. The big issues are in Asia, where we saw the offshoring, and China is in a category all by itself.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. Appreciate your time today. I'm very concerned there's no plan, and this is being done kind of willy-nilly at the last minute by the president, out of his head. It doesn't really make sense to us. It'd be great if we knew what the plan was and it was shared to us by the administration. And even if it was done in a way for our committee, that we can at least know what's happening. We have a lot of the same goals, but right now, prices are going up, our allies are very upset, and the stock market is on fire. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to enter a tweet by Howard Lutnick, basically where he states Scott Besson and him sat with President when they drafted the post, the Truth Social post that paused the tariffs for 90 days. This is just to emphasize that we don't really know who's running things over there.
So ordered.